I'm firmly in the camp of spatial is not special. So I think for a while, certainly, years past that made sense as a statement that spatial was special. Now, I think what it does is it limits the usability, not necessarily because the data is not useful for non-spatial practitioners, but because it made it seem like this is something I don't know how to work with, or this is something that, I don't have the tools for. I think particularly now with, native support for spatial data types and things like Iceberg and Parquet, I think what it does is it makes that integration seamless. It makes it, transparent in a way that people who haven't worked with spatial data before don't look at it as some unknown, what is this? What am I dealing with? It's a, there are specific data types that are well explained and well documented they can use. There are specific operators that are well documented. And I think what that does is it opens up the possibilities for really expanding, the use of spatial data in a way that people just haven't been using it before. I mean, we are a location-driven world, society. Everything is, has something to do with location, even if it's tangential. And to think about the ability that these types of technologies now allow, non-spatial people to integrate. You don't have to make a map. You don't have to, have a visualization. You can use spatial data the way that you've used any other kind of data in the past for business intelligence. And thinking about spatial data that way, I think sometimes when you're a purist, you think, well, we need a map. We have to have a map. The map is the thing. But the reality is that the data is the thing. And yes, you could make a map, but you should be able to work with spatial data the same way you work with any other data type. And now this technology makes that possible and easy and, trivial.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the major things that I find very powerful in terms of geospatial adopting these file formats and their access is to do with being comfortable with the file structure, right? Like if you're coming from running GIS solely on your desktop, you're probably used to organizing stuff into files and folders. When you go to something like S3, things are again in the object storage, still files and folders. And even better, when you have something like Iceberg or Delta Lake, you now have an SQL interface on top of your file structure. So it's almost like you have the flexibility of just adding files, split them up however you want, put them in there, and you can still